To another episode of Bobby's Business Club, the chat show. Today we have one of our amazing members on the call. Her name is Suzanne Glendenning, and she is from Quantum Results Coaching International. I've been networking with Sue for the past 2 years, and the energy and experience she brings to the world of business is amazing. So today she's going to be going through her presentation, and we're going to learn more about Suzanne and what she can do for you in your business. Suzanne, welcome to Bobby's Business Club, the chat show. The floor is yours, my friend. Whenever you're ready, go for it.
Thank you very much for such an awesome introduction. Well, today we're going to be talking about communication, and it's one of my favourite topics. So it's going to be about effective communication with yourself, but more importantly, I guess, with others. So the question is, are you being heard? So today we're going to look at, I've just got a couple of slides, if this is going to work properly. Here we go. Communication, are you being heard? We're going to want to look at how you're getting your message across, and are you getting your message across for the best possible outcome? How to hold an awareness of what good communication really means and the impact of understanding how others actually process information. How to gain an understanding of our communication with ourselves, which is our self-talk. How important this is and the impact that it actually has on our results. And how we process our thoughts. Because sometimes we have that conversation, with ourselves out loud. I mean, does anybody else do this? I certainly do. And I think it's an important part of working through your thought processes and working through your stuff in a way. So I guess, what is communication? Communication can be a conversation, can be exchange of words, but it's an exchange of words with a message. It could be an exchange of ideas, a consultation, teaching of new information. It could be physical contact, such as a handshake or a hug. People communicate in many ways and on many levels for many different purposes. For most of us, though, it's essential to our daily existence. But for some people, it can actually be a huge challenge. Families, politicians, salespeople, people in industry, people in education all need good communication skills. Many people, however, lack these skills, and there can actually be a price to pay for this. But interestingly, people particularly, and business people I find, often struggle with the basic principles of communication. So we think we know what we're doing and what we're trying to communicate and what we're trying to get across, but it's not happening. So the fact is that every communication we have, either with others or with ourselves, again, which is our self-talk, has an effect. It has an outcome. It has a result. So the question is, what if it's not the outcome that you really want? And what can you do about that? So having an awareness of our communication style and purpose is something that many people don't even think about. And that's because we usually operate on autopilot, which is our subconscious mind. So we work with both our conscious and our subconscious mind. And often we are just working on autopilot, but that has an impact on our actions as well. And so there are many types of communication, though. When you think about it, there's, physical and verbal, there's auditory. We become rather complacent, really, with how we're actually getting our message across and the impact of our actions. And our focus is on getting the result that we want to get. However, if we don't have an awareness of the elements of communication, if you like, the impact of these can have a really negative response. Technology today has really enabled us to communicate across and beyond our own planet, providing lots of opportunities to create and develop personal and business relationships. But what's the outcome of this? So having worked with leaders and their teams in organisations, I've found that having an awareness around communication styles is not something that many people really acknowledge as being important. I mean, it just happens every day. It's just part of everyday life. And they don't attach any sort of importance to it. But it's critical. It's critical to getting a positive and productive outcome. It's about getting the outcome that you intend to get when you started your communication. So is your message getting across to the right people in the right way, the way you intended? Are you being heard? And if not, what do you need to do to make that happen? So what is the narrative which is appropriate for this particular issue? Just think about that. But it's actually more than just words. So we want to look at how good communication can influence behaviour, because that's what it's about. That's what impacting on getting your results. And one of the areas often neglected is that attributing your clear communication with getting the outcome. So predicting, motivating and influencing behaviour through advanced language patterns. That's a coachy term, I guess, for saying, you know, the way you express yourself and the way you communicate will impact directly on your results and the outcome that you get. So why do people hear the words and yet still miss the message? It's that old "are you listening or hearing" thing. And what motivates people you work with to actually want to work with you? How do they make their decisions? Are you actually even aware of that? Do they tend to be positive or negative with their approach to a situation? You see, it's important as a leader to really understand this and really understand the different communication styles that people have so you can make it work for everybody. And it's important to build communication flexibility so you can motivate and you can engage and you can connect with others much more compellingly and productively, of course. And it's important to know what to say, but it's also important to know what not to say when you're engaging with people. And understanding good communication will give you a better way to diagnose and deal with communication conflicts and conflicts within the workplace and conflicts within the family as well. Quite a few clients talk to me about that, and they'll say, you know, it extends into their home life, the way that they're communicating and the results that they're getting. So using a simple formula can really assist with predicting behaviour and therefore predicting the outcome that you want. So I'll cover more about this later. So what carries most of your communication with others? And most people think it's the words because that's what we're used to dealing with and that's what we look at and that's what we understand. But it's actually 7% words. It's approximately 38% tonality, and it's about 55% physiology. So what you're doing physically. And many people don't realise that when they send an email or other written communication, it actually has no tonality. And that's why emails can sometimes be an issue for people, because you can't get that personal inflection into the words and you can't personalise your message so much. They're just words. And sometimes that can have an impact on the message or the result. So when you're speaking to anyone, it's critical to be aware of your tonality. What tone are you using? And I can remember when I was a child, sometimes when I was doing my teenage thing, my mum would say, don't use that tone with me, please. And it's true. Sometimes our tonality can have a huge impact on what we're doing. The tone of your words. You can say the same thing with 3 different tonalities and get 3 different results. So do you sound interested? Do you sound engaged? Do you sound questioning, cross, judgmental, or impatient? So for instance, if I said, oh, what are you doing? Bobby, what are you doing? Question, it's inquisitive. If I said, what are you doing? Bit of judgment in there. If I said, what are you doing? Wow, that's criticism and that's harsh. Same words, just saying it 3 different ways. So just think about your tonality when you're talking to people. So when we look at verbal, it's which words, how to use them, how we control our part of the conversation. And people do like to be in control, essentially. Responsibility, though, around how to deliver our message for the best result is important. So what does best result even mean? Accountability around ensuring that you understand that your message is clear. And it is about accountability. It's up to you to make sure that your message is clear. It's about how to deliver feedback, which may not always be positive, or how to have that difficult conversation with either staff or fellow people at work, even family. friends, anybody. And then we have the visual, the body language, eye patterns, understanding where people look. Are they remembering or are they creating before giving a response? Are they telling you the truth? The way people stand or sit, gestures used to confirm or maybe support their position. It could be perceived or otherwise. If you're talking within a group, you can see how people are reacting to things by their body language. Have you ever been caught by a difficult question, one that's you're just not able to come up with a response really quickly and you're not really sure what to do about it? Well, you need to give yourself time. All right. Some people, it's about being proactive, not reactive. And some people react in that situation. And what I suggest is just having a quick pause and then say, oh, that's interesting. Because it shows that you're engaging, you're listening, but you're also giving yourself time to come up with a suitable answer. And then if you can't think of a good answer and one that's appropriate, you can actually be honest and say, you know what, I need to think a little more on that and I'll get back to you. But it shows you heard, it shows you're listening, it shows you're engaged. But you're not then going to say anything that is not appropriate, or you could commit yourself to something that you'd rather you hadn't. So just remember, oh, that's interesting. Works every time. And everybody has their own model of the world, their own model of the world. And simply appreciating that everybody does actually have their own model of the world is one huge step towards understanding your own thoughts and feelings, but also the thoughts and feelings of other people. Because we're all different. We're all completely different. Some clients have come to me with help for effective communication with their staff and their teams because they say, I just don't understand the way they think. I just don't understand them. I don't get them. I don't get why they're not getting my message. So initially understanding that everyone is different, that they process information differently and at a different rate, and they interpret this information or communication coming into them through their own filters, because we all process information through our own filters. They may not all be getting the same message. Well, you think you're being clear, they're not hearing it. So how do you deal with that? It's about asking the right questions. And it's also about everyone taking responsibility for the issue or the challenge in question. And it's about the choices that we make with our decisions and the way we communicate through our thoughts, our requests, our questions, our feedback, or our training techniques. So you find the issue and you deal with it. So an example of that is just imagine you've got somebody at work who's usually, really good at what they do. They're detailed and they're reliable, but suddenly their work has slipped away and, they're not up to standard. They may be a bit withdrawn and you don't want to criticise them, but you wonder what's going on. So a really good way to address that is to say, gee, John, we've noticed you're making quite a few mistakes and missing some important steps in our process at the moment, and that's not like you. Are you okay? Is there anything we can help with? Is there anything you need? Okay, that shows concern, but it's also finding out what the problem is. If they've actually stuffed something up for the second or third time, then you can ask, okay, so why do you think you missed doing step number, whatever it is, in our process? Again. So you have to emphasize that they've done it again. It's been several times now. So how can we help you ensure that this never happens again? Just run me through what you understand the process to be, and we'll see what the problem is. As we both know, it's critical that all these checks are done correctly. When you're doing that, you're supporting the person, but you're addressing the fact that they're not doing the work that they're required to do, and there's an impact for that. And you need to find out what they don't know. So then you can look at the result. Don't finish the discussion without coming up with a firm resolution, and that's so important. You can't just let it go at that. You've got to say, right, now, next step, what happens from here? And the person must commit to it, so you both know where you stand. Was that a good choice to make? Is a great question to ask if people actually mess up with something. So it brings them into accountability. You know, was that a really good choice to make, do you think? That works really well with kids as well. So how could you have handled that differently? This is to see if they know what they're doing and if they actually appreciate their responsibility with every job. So if the employee says, well, the client didn't give me all the information that I needed, that's reasons and excuses, of course. The manager might say, well, what's another question that you could have asked the client to get the answer that you needed? And it helps some people explore possibilities. And it's also about, as I said, accountability, which is really important. If someone complains to you, ask them to be specific. I mean, anybody can complain and be difficult, but if you say, look, I appreciate your feelings, and if you could tell me specifically what happened or what someone did or said, I will know what we're dealing with. Make them accountable. You can't just say this happened or that happened or I'm complaining. Specifically, what was it? And it's not just about, you know, sniping or being a victim. This is about you supporting them to get the result that you both need to get and get a good resolution. If there's a complaint within the organisation, you can check in, get the details, but then ask, okay, what would a good outcome look like for you? Again, you're going to a positive outcome. And this shifts some of the responsibility to them also for creating that outcome. Staff and teams do the same. You know, they sometimes get into the blame game. I'm sure we've all experienced this. It's always somebody else's fault. They say, look, I haven't been trained on this issue, or I didn't understand what I had to do, or nobody explained it. They use whatever excuse that they feel is acceptable for them. But if you enter a different narrative with them and you help them understand that they can communicate their needs in a different way rather than being aggressive or demanding, then the outcome will be different. This is about education, toleration, boundaries. That's a whole other topic. And it also, again, this is helpful when you're dealing with kids who might be a little bit difficult and pushing back, but that's for another time. Sometimes we get into the judgment area of approving versus agreeing. And I found this really interesting. I had a discussion with a group of people the other day about this, and Brené Brown talks about this, if any of you follow her. You actually really don't have the right to approve of anybody else's life choices, their fashion choices, their footy team choices, or any other choices that they have, because this is judgment. Okay, so it's not up to you to approve of what they do or what they think or what they say. You don't necessarily have to agree with it, and that's a different thing. You don't necessarily have to agree with what they're doing or saying. I mean, it would be boring if we all agreed on everything. You can choose not to agree, but you don't have the right to approve or judge. And this is a much larger topic to explore, and again, maybe for another time. But this brings us to values, which are a favourite thing of mine. I love working with values, and values are just such a huge part of our communication. And I've run whole sessions on values because they're just critical to how we think and how we behave, and again, to the results that we get. But what are they? They're simply what's important to you, okay? And they are the drivers of our success. And we use our values every day. We're not often aware of it, and we don't often acknowledge it, but everything we do is based on our values. And they all sit behind our communication, all of our thoughts and all of our words. But they also come into play when we talk about feedback. So giving and receiving good, valuable feedback is something that many people struggle with. Our core values are actually relevant here because we need to consider how we can stay aligned with our values while we're either giving or receiving feedback. So if you're on the receiving end and the person who's providing the feedback is skilled and they have empathy, sometimes it's a little bit easier. But if they're not so good at it, sometimes negative feedback can be really hard to hear. And sometimes the people don't know actually how to give good feedback because it can be productive, even if it's negative or it's something that we don't want to hear, it can still be productive and something we can learn from. So we don't have time today, unfortunately, to get into the mindset issues around the emotions attached to either giving or receiving feedback. However, what you say and how you deliver your message can be critical to the outcome. So maybe think for a moment about a scenario where in the past you've had to give feedback and the person receiving it sort of locked into the negative and defensive attitude. You know, the physical signs, which is again communication, might be arms folded over chest, or, you know, that direct stare, the tight mouth, maybe even a frown, because they're ready to fight their cause and defend their actions. So what's a way you can handle that so the person is ready to receive the feedback, good or bad, and take it on board and learn from it and really make it count? So being mindful of your own body language when you're thinking and what you are thinking, because that may well be displayed on your face. You know, we think that people don't know what's going on in our head, but you'd be surprised what you display on your face. Really, we show quite a lot. You might find your arms are folded. Are they folded, or are your hands open and welcoming? How are you sitting? You're sitting forward. Are you leaning into the conversation, or have you already backed off? Where are you looking? Are you looking at them, or are you looking down, or are you looking away? I talked before about eye patterns, and you can tell whether people are constructing or remembering. I'm sure many of you would have heard of the feedback sandwich. This is a really good one to use if you have to give feedback to people and you're not sure how to do it. The feedback sandwich is great because you start with what the issue or the problem was. So, you know, Bobby, we need to talk about this issue and, you know, what you were doing with this project the other day. And then you talk about the good things they did. You know, I really like the way that you handled that and spoke to the client, and you were really proactive in this area. And then you move on to what needs to be improved, what improvement is needed and what needs to be corrected. But maybe next time we could look at doing it this way. Or I noticed you needed a little extra help in this area. We could look at giving you some extra training around that. So it's giving them feedback without making it crushing. So the feedback sandwich is a really good idea. So maybe that's something you could use if you haven't already. So feedback's a topic in itself, really, and it could be explored for a specific session, but this is just a rough overview. Food for thought, I guess. So self-talk. Internal communication is your self-talk. What you say to yourself, whether you're saying it out loud or you're just thinking it. And it comes from your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is the autopilot. Okay, not many people really fully understand how we operate in this mode and how it impacts on our results. But it's very important to understand how critical this actually is with regard to our communication, you know, both how we deliver and how we receive information. Our subconscious mind actually controls the game. It's a very powerful thing. I mean, have you ever driven home from somewhere and not actually remembered the drive? You don't actually remember how you got there. You were driving on autopilot. And we do that quite a lot. We operate on autopilot quite a bit. And because we work so much with our subconscious, this is why, you know, so many companies use profiling tools, for instance, like Myers-Briggs, and they do disc profiling. As I said before, everybody has their own model of the world, but some don't completely understand their own, let alone other people's. But this is critical if you're working with a team. So our self-talk or our internal dialogue can be a contributing factor to our message, and the belief systems that we hold on to can actually influence the narrative and the story that we're sharing. So do you talk to people or do you talk at people? Do you listen or do you hear? Are you aware of how important your tonality is and the impact that it can have on a simple request or some feedback for a team member? Or again, family. Your self-talk comes from your belief system, as I said, your subconscious, but it also has an impact on your actions. And I remember learning years ago, and I think it was Bob Proctor, you know, your thoughts equal your actions and your actions equal your results. So thoughts like, I just don't have the confidence to do this. And this is very deep in your subconscious quite often, but it comes out when you have a challenge or you come up against something new or you're in a situation that you feel uncomfortable in, you go immediately to your own triggers. I don't have the confidence to do this. Maybe it's an imposter syndrome thought, like, gosh, wait till they realise that I don't actually know what I'm doing and I'm not up to this job. Another one is, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve this. And the poisonous list just goes on. If not corrected, this can block you from success and impact on your outcomes and just make you miserable. Your self-talk, your personal communication is so important, but it's often forgotten if it's not given any credibility. And look, I work with so many people on correcting that internal dialogue and changing that message that they're getting from their subconscious. And you can do it. It's just like a computer program. You know, you remove the old one and you install the new one. So it can be done. And choices and consequences are another thing. I really relate well to communication, because a client was asking me we were discussing some issues he had at work and with his own clients. But he asked me while he was there in the session for some advice on communication challenges he was having with his daughter and his stepdaughter. And they were choosing to be a bit challenging in their behaviour and pushing back a little bit. So instead of getting into the story and making it a contest, and that's what they were looking for really, I suggest that he tried the following ideas. So I said, just say, well, okay, keep it slow, keep it questioning, shows you've heard and you're not jumping up and down and you haven't already made judgment, but you haven't agreed either. So it's just, okay, do you really think that's a great choice for you right now? So what do you think that choice would give you, really? Or what do you feel would be your responsibility around making that choice for yourself? What would be the consequences of that? Do you want to tell me about why you feel that this is a really good choice for you? And notice I said, what do you feel, not what do you think? Big difference, although most people sometimes don't recognise it at the conscious level. So it might sound it's labouring a little bit on the whole choice thing, but it does make them think about their choices and it makes them think about the consequences of those choices. So the feedback from the client was, worked perfectly, thank you very much, solved. So he said, now I don't have that challenge of having to go up against a big issue every time and make it a conflict, just by using that simple strategy. No dramas, he said, actually. So at the end of the day, it is about choices, what you choose to think and do and say, why you think and do it and say it, and how you think and do it and say it. We all have choices every day and we're all responsible for them. You are responsible for your choices with your communication. And if you're struggling and you need some help, then certainly get it, because everyone will benefit. I understand is something that people say quite a bit. I understand what you mean, and I understand how you're feeling. But that can be a bit insulting for some people, and they can be really annoyed by it. A lot of people don't like you telling them you understand. Like, how can you understand? Why do you understand? If you've been in my position, it's much better to say, I appreciate what you've just told me, or I appreciate what you think, or I appreciate that input. So maybe just be mindful of that in the future. Not everyone wants to hear that you understand, and they think you can't possibly, but they don't usually argue with, I appreciate. So what if? What if you could get your message across and gain the best possible outcome? What if you could resolve conflict by asking the right questions? And what if you could learn how to get the best way to give and receive feedback, which is such a big one for people? What if you could understand how to manage teams efficiently and help them communicate effectively? And what if you could understand and manage your own self-talk? So I'll just leave you with these thoughts. We are all different. We all have our own model of the world. We all have our own belief system. And we all need to communicate on some level with people every day. And we all need to have the best possible information to allow us to do that effectively. So I'd love to get some feedback from you on that. So I'll leave you with those thoughts today. If you have had any questions, I'd be delighted to hear them. So I'm sure you can send them, either send them through to me or send them through Bobby, and I'd be more than happy to get back to you on that. So that's it for me, Bobby. I've got some information that I can leave about ebooks and that sort of thing. So it might help if people want.
Tell us more about the ebooks, since they're on the screen now. Give us a bit of info about that.
Okay. On the Quantum Results website is Think Your Way to Success, and that's more for business people. So that's a little more around the communication and mindset, and a lot to do with our self-talk and how to deal with that, you know, limiting beliefs and that sort of thing. So, and that's free download, downloads as a PDF. So that's I've had some really great feedback from that particular one. And the other one is for women in business, but it can relate to anybody. And I think a lot of, I'm finding a lot of the younger girls are reading this too, and you know, preparing themselves for when they go out into the business world. But that's on the Women in Business website. So it's women-inbusiness.com. And that's the critical difference between struggle and success. So I give you my 6 strategies, and I give you the magic solution in there. So it's worth reading. And again, that's available for free and immediate download. So enjoy those. Yeah, a lot of people find that there's, you know, the information in there is just practical, down to earth, and but already answers some questions that they have. And interestingly, raises more questions, which is what we want to do.
Sue, thanks so much. I was literally mesmerised on every word that you were talking about, and the way you presented that was perfect. And there's so much to learn about ourselves and how we can be better people, or even just understand the world around us. And we take everything so granted, so much for granted. We think, oh, that person is living the same life. Everyone is so different. And the sandwich thing you were talking about, when you said that, I was like, oh, I've had that done to me before. And I was like, oh, thanks for the great feedback. And then you go away and what has happened is you've got great feedback, and then a bit of an improvement and a great feedback, but you go away from the conversation rather than being deflated, but rather than, okay, oh, we can do this. And that's what it's all about. But guys, you know, you can reach out to Sue if you'd like to learn more. Obviously, I'm here for you if you would like me to do an introduction, but all Sue's details are in the description. All the links that you saw on the screen there are also there. So if you would like to download the ebook, find out more information about Sue, there's also going to be the LinkedIn profile there, and also the Calendly link will be also in there as well. I can highly recommend jumping on a call with Sue and just learning more about how she can help you. And as you can see, the calmness really shines through, and that's what we need, because sometimes we can come to someone like Sue and our brain is a million miles an hour, and we just need someone to sort that mess out, like a big ball of wool yarn or something all tangled up, and Sue's going to stretch that out and sort that out for you. So I'm really honoured and proud to have you not only as part of Bobby's Business Club, but someone that I can call, and you're on my side, and that's what we need in business. We need good people like you around us. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much.